Okay, when something's wrong, whether it's physical or mental, just figuring out exactly what's wrong is the first crucial step.
And our expert in behavioral health, Dr. Tim Royer from NeuroCore, is here to talk about that with us. And this is really an interesting topic. There's some changes, I guess, in medicine that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, what's referred to as the psychiatric Bible, the DSM. About every 20 years, there's a revision of it. And this week will come out the DSM-5, which in psychiatric circles is a huge thing. But there's a few pitfalls in this that I think it's very important for people to understand, because it's how we address this, how we look at this, that defines what we get diagnosed with, how we treat that, whether we use medicine, not medicine, those kind of things. So it's very important for the general public to understand the DSM-5 and its implications.
Sure, a lot of ramifications.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
And we've been hearing a lot of big headlines. First of all, the whole autism spectrum and the way that they're classifying some of the disorders and removing some of those different classifications. I know that's gotten a lot of headlines. And then also the new disorders that they're adding in.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, there's a disorder called internet disorder. So if you're on the internet too long, there's your classic ones, your neurocognitive, obsessive compulsive, sleep-wake disorders. But the ones that get concerning, are we really getting out of hand here when we're creating something called an internet disorder for using the internet too much? The other one is if your child has too many temper tantrums, they can actually get a mental disorder for having temper tantrums. We're talking about little kids who their brains haven't even developed yet. We're giving these disorders out, and it's really just getting out of hand.
Yeah, and so what does this lead to? We know that you could be identified, or you can be put into a category that would need certain treatments or certain types of medical response under these guidelines, right?
Right, and it's very interesting when you think about this. Your choice to make all these diagnoses and to accept those then leads to, well, what do I do? I now have internet disorder.
Right.
What should I do?
A treatment, right?
Right? And so where does that lead you next? It leads you to, well, maybe there's a pill that helps me with this. And it's very interesting because 70% of the researchers involved with making this are funded by pharmaceutical companies.
Okay.
So it's a great industry. If I can create more diagnoses, then more people have problems. And with now the DSM-5, over 50% of the population will qualify for some type of mental disorder in their lifetime. So you now qualify. So then what happens next? Let's make a commercial that helps you give a medicine for your child's temper tantrums.
That just seems outrageous to me. I mean, I know I'm the mother of 3 kids. I know Rachel has little girls at home too. So let's talk about what NeuroCore does and the approach, because I think the most interesting thing that I have learned from you through the years is that the foundation starts with figuring out exactly what is going on in your brain. And you do that not on a subjective level. You have some objective criteria that you use.
Yeah, and this is where I would see that while we want to look at behaviors, this is where NeuroCore is so different. We're just not looking at behaviors like it's been done for 100 years when it comes to these kind of behavior issues, is we actually look at the brain that drives the behaviors. There's no other medical thing that we would deal with that we wouldn't actually look at the organ, right? If you got issues with pain in your chest, we're going to look at your heart, okay? We're not just going to say, oh, you have pain in the chest disorder. We want to figure out what's going on with your heart. The brain's the same way. We need to look at the brain. And at NeuroCore, yes, we're going to look at the behaviors, but we're actually going to see how the brain itself is functioning and the electrical activity that's going in there, how the neurons are working, and see what is it about that that's causing these behaviors. Instead of just describing different behaviors like internet disorder and temper tantrums for children, we want to see what's driving those things, what's going on with the brain that's causing the person to do that.
Yeah, and I know one of the big benefits of what you're doing is you actually are getting a plan together and you have an exit strategy, as opposed to so many other ways that there's really not. So you might put yourself on drugs, or your child, on drugs, but then when does it ever stop?
Exactly. Once you get one of these diagnoses, now they're saying it could be close to 500 different diagnoses. When the first book was written, it was 22. Wow. 22 diagnoses in 80 years ago, and now over 500. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and look at this. We're looking through really the last 100 years, and walk us through some of this, because the first DSM manual came out 1917 with the 22 diagnoses.
Yeah, I think if we all knew what the manual was originally called, which was the Manual for Use of Institutions of the Insane, we would kind of say, well, wait a minute, I don't know if my child should really be diagnosed with something that's called that. And the name has changed over the years, but that was 22 diagnoses in 1917, 1952, the first DSM-1. Then in 1966, we jumped up to 106 diagnoses. In the year 2000, 365. And in 2013, they're going to have all these different subtypes and other experimental disorders that could bump us over the 500 mark. Basically, everybody has something, so we now all need a pill to deal with this thing that I have.
Right. So what is your advice? You know, you're a doctor, you know about the system, you know the history of this. For some people, this may be the first time they've heard about it. Is it to be a little bit cautious about your own health care, maybe take a little bit of control of it?
Yeah, because what's going to happen is each one of these disorders come out, there's going to be, you know, some headlines about this disorder, internet disorder, or whatever. And you want to step back and say, not so much what are the behaviors, okay, but what is the brain doing that's driving those behaviors, and fix that so that it doesn't come out in something else. And so you need to be very cautious and ask the questions, where do the behaviors come from? And don't just accept a diagnosis because you meet 4 criteria of 6. So now my child now has this the rest of their life.
So talk to us about NeuroCore. How would somebody get in touch with you? Because I know that it's so exciting, because as research has proven just exactly how efficient and how effective your treatment is, so many insurance companies are stepping forward and actually partnering with you to even cover the treatments.
Yeah, you know, we currently have 7 different offices. Over the summer, we're opening up another 4 to 6 offices on the east side of the state. And the main reason for that is we've gotten huge coverage from Blue Cross Blue Shield, where they've come in and they've looked at all this and they've said, wow, we can actually fix these problems rather than deal with this the rest of the individual's life. And so we're getting some great coverage for that. So we definitely encourage you to contact us. We have some great scholarship programs. The other thing that we do, especially in relation to this whole diagnostic step, is getting a really good assessment. And what we do for 8 West viewers is we offer a pretty significant discount on that. And we say, let's get the assessment, not just look at behaviors, let's see what your brain is doing.
Right, for a fraction of the cost, $100 instead of paying $250.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that, but you do have to call and you do have to mention 8 West to get that special deal. Thank you for coming in, Dr. Royer. We really appreciate it.
Very, very great. And plus, you have a lot of great information on your website as well.
Yeah.
Great.
We'll be right back.
This is 8 West.